Welcome to Everything Wrestling with Mr. Everything. I am the one and only Mr. Everything. So we're gonna get straight into the Raw recap. It started off the night with Bron Breakker, Seth Rollins, and Paul Heyman coming out to the ring, letting everyone know that they're the future of the industry, the future of the business, and they will not be stopped. And then they were interrupted by Sami Zayn. Now Seth tries to tell Sami essentially that he's either going to move on to SmackDown, or he would be in the way, or else, or essentially they would take him out. Sammy then said it was a lot like the Bloodline, how he had Paul Heyman, who was the wise man, and even his little dog, yes, he called Bron Breakker a little dog, was right beside him. Then he does something Jay Uso-ish and says that if Bron Breakker keeps looking at him like that, he's gonna kick his head off. Seth then says either move to SmackDown or become a target and tells him to think about it. Then there was a video package of Roxanne and Guilia attacking Io Sky before being saved by Ripley, which would lead into the match of Rhea and Roxanne. Now, Roxanne really showed that she belonged on the main roster. Anybody that has been watching NXT over the past couple years has seen the rise of Roxanne, who actually graduated from Booker T's wrestling school, Reality of Wrestling. And this was what I would say is a coming out party for Roxanne, essentially, other than the Royal Rumble and the past week's attack, because she went at Rhea the entire match, going for her leg, trying to take her out. It was many times, many chop blocks. She wrapped her leg around the ring post a few times. Of course, Rhea would get offense in also, even hitting her with a razor's edge. Then she hit her with a knee, but of course, having her knee previously hurt or damaged during the match, she really couldn't use that knee like she wanted. And then she hit her with a razor's edge. And Julia comes out for a distraction. Roxanne hit her with a Hurricane DDT, or that's at least what Pat McAfee called it. And then she went for the riptide. And of course, Julia took her legs out, which was pretty much the thing for the night as far as going against Rhea. And they attacked Rhea. Rhea would eventually roll out of the ring, and Io Sky would come to save the day. As Io was on the attack, the ladies would, of course, begin to attack Io, and Rhea limped back into the ring, and the ladies would escape. Now, this is just, I'm not sure if they're on the main roster yet, or they're just penciling them in here and there. But what I see from Julia and Roxanne Perez so far, I really, really enjoy it. And if you know anything about Julia, she's been a big star outside of the WWE for quite a while. And they went through hell and high water to get her down in NXT, and she's done very well so far. She's been the NXT Women's Champ before she lost it to Julia. And Roxanne is really one of those ones that's gonna take women's wrestling into the future. All right, then we had Logan Paul came up bragging about his win versus AJ Styles. He also continued to throw shots at the Kansas City crowd, pretty much saying they were poor bums and all that. A lot like what he's been doing in the past couple of weeks. And he says he wants to be a world champion, and that he would take Jay's belt essentially. And then Jay comes out. He said, after 15 years, you think I'm going to let a punk ass YouTuber take my title? And essentially, this is what we've been hearing for quite some time when it comes to Logan Paul. And Paul said he's done more in 4 years than Jay did in his entire career. And if you think about it, Logan Paul has had a great WWE career. A great WWE career. He fought the Mysterios with the Miz. He's fought Roman Reigns. He's had a lot of big time matches, and he's also one of the more athletic superstars in the WWE. He's a YouTuber turned wrestler, and quite frankly, he's one of the top wrestlers in the WWE, at least athletic wise. Of course, he's gonna hone his skills to get better, but hate to admit it, he's actually a top guy. And Jay then goes on to say how Gunther lit a fire under him when he attacked Jay and Jimmy, when Jay had to watch him bleed in his face. That fire that is not going to be put out. And then Logan that is, says how he's going to take the title, and Jey Uso super kicks him, leaves him in the ring. And I don't know if you guys noticed, Jey Uso actually took his heat shades and gave it to a child cancer survivor. I think that was very great, especially with Jey Uso being the super baby face and the world heavyweight champion. It makes perfect sense, and you could tell it was actually genuine and not planned. Then we had JD and Finn versus the War Raiders. Now, I can honestly say throughout this match, commentary put JD over the entire match. Okay, JD is absolutely impressive, even back to his NXT days. Like, JD McDonough is a great wrestler. Small with a big head, but he's a great wrestler. And they were pretty much putting him over the whole match. It was great offense going both ways. The New Day was on commentary, kind of putting JD over also. But they would continuously pick on Ivar, pretty much saying that Ivar was coming up to a higher level while Eric was out. But what did he do? He got back with his tag team partner and came down to a lower level. They were pretty much saying, well, Kofi was saying how he could do everything that Ivar does, and Xavier will continue to say how what Ivar does is only impressive because he's fat. Now, understand, Ivar is a big guy, and he does some very impressive things, like the Doom Saw, the cartwheels, the flipping against the ropes into the clothesline. He does a lot of athletic moves that you don't expect a man his size to do. And then Penta comes out as Carlito's trying to distract the ref for the Judgment Day. Penta comes out and pushes JD off the top rope. And if you remember, when Penta was about to close in for a win against Dominic, JD returned and pushed Penta off the top rope. So essentially, he was getting his revenge. Then Paul Heyman says that Bron is demanding a match with Sami, but Seth is trying to save him. And he offers a championship opportunity to Sami Zayn if he goes to SmackDown. Now, this championship opportunity will be against whoever wins at Backlash between Cena and Orton. And he tells him he can live in the future or die in the past, and gives him time to think about it. Then shortly after Becky comes out, she essentially says no one needs to investigate what happened to Bayley because she was the one. She was the one to take out Bayley to insert herself into WrestleMania in the tag team match with Lyra to win the titles. And then Lyra comes out and pretty much does the promo of her career. Now, Lyra is already over with the crowd. You can tell by her entrance. You can tell when she does the moves. She gets the oohs and the ahs. And she says that Becky always told her that Bayley always told her that Becky was a snake. That she do whatever she needed to do, step on whoever she needed to step on to get to the top. And then she said she didn't believe anyone because it was throughout the locker room, people letting her know that she didn't believe anyone until Becky hit her with the manhandle slam repeatedly over and over. Now, I'm going to say right here, right now, that I can see this becoming a major feud and really putting Lyra over, win or lose. You can go over even in a loss, and I see that happening with Lyra. Then Becky says, well, Lyra essentially challenges her to a match, and Becky says pretty much Kansas City doesn't deserve that. She fights when it matters. And Lyra says, well, you want to fight when it matters? How about we fight in St. Louis at Backlash? And since you only fight when it matters, how about we do it for the Intercontinental Championship? And of course, Becky accepts. And it's not many times in wrestling you see the champion making the challenge, but that was the result we had. Becky took it. Then Becky went on another, or tried to go on another rant, and she was kicked in the face by Lyra. She left out. Lyra comes back to the top of the ramp, holds up her title, celebrates what was a very good promo. She celebrates that, and then before you know it, she was attacked from behind by Becky, left on the floor of the ramp, and Becky walked off to the back. Then we see Gable backstage talking to Penta, and he tells Penta how he's a loser, just like his brother Ray Phoenix was to El Grande Americano, which we all know it's not Chad Gable. Yes, El Grande Americano, it's not Chad Gable. How? Chad Gable's there one night, and so is El Grande Americano. They can't be the same person, can they? And then they show Rusev's promo, and he's looking back on his career. He's looking back on how he used to crush everybody, how he had the tank against John Cena, how he was very dominant and destroying everything in his path. But then he left, his career fell into the abyss, and he continued to warn the WWE locker room of what's soon to come. Now I see Rusev return to form as in dominant, when people down left and right, as he did Otis and Tozawa the previous week. Now next week he has a match with Otis, which I expect to be somewhat of a squash. But of course, you have to let Otis get offense in, because quite frankly, man that size has to show offense. And then we have Stephanie Vaquer versus Ivy Now. Now, when I tell you Stephanie Vaquer versus Ivy Now, you probably think that Stephanie's going to take out like that. Heavy offense, only her. Especially after what Stephanie's been doing in NXT and what she did the week before on Raw. But this was a hell of a match. Other than the shenanigans in the main event, I would say that Stephanie Vaquer versus Ivy Now was probably match of the night. I have to think back on it, but right now that's probably what I'm thinking. They went back and forth offensively. Of course, Vaquer hit the Devil's Kiss. You can only imagine if Booker T was there. Because if you watch NXT, you know Booker T loses it when she does the Devil's Kiss. And then, like, she was getting more offense and more offense. They were going back and forth. Ivy Now was very impressive. Then she would get in the corner for the that corner dragon screw. And then she hit her finisher, the SVB, for the W. I see Stephanie Vaquer. I'm not, once again, this is a situation like Julie and Roxanne. I'm not sure if she's on the main roster or they're just penciling in. But just like those two, she's beyond ready for this situation. And she also said when she signed, she had the opportunity to be main roster, but chose to be NXT to more so learn the WWE way. And it's safe to say she's learned that way. Then AJ talks to Nick Aldis about opportunities. And he also says that he's looking for them. And as he's talking to Nick Aldis, here comes Dom and Liv Morgan. Now, Liv Morgan comes in and says pretty much she's going to be gone for a while. She's taking a break because she has to shoot a movie. Dom says that he needs a break also. Aldis has some wine. And Dom says, because I'm the champ, I do what I want. So Aldis comes back and he says, well, you should learn from your father. Being a champion means you're going to actually have to work more. So as they leave the room, AJ tells Aldis he think he's found an opportunity. So I guess we're going to see AJ Styles versus Dominic pretty soon. That seems like where we're going at. Then once again, we see Sami Zayn backstage, and Karrion Kross approaches him and tells Sami he has a big decision to make, and he better make the right one. Now, I don't know what they're doing with Karrion Kross, but I am beyond excited to see what Karrion Kross is going to do. I have been a fan of Karrion Kross since he first arrived in NXT. I was ecstatic when he returned and put the hourglass up for the bloodline, Roman Reigns, however you want to put it. I'm very excited to see what goes with Karrion Kross. And that kind of made me think that he might be with Heyman and Seth and Breaker. Or it also kind of made me think that this little thing that Karrion Kross is doing is actually building his character, which he's been doing since that night he returned. So I'm very very excited to see what's going to come out of that. Then we got a video package of Gunther attacking Michael Cole, saved by Pat McAfee, then attacking McAfee, putting him to sleep. And McAfee, man, he put on one of the best promos. Like, of course, you know McAfee has a talk show, one of the biggest sports shows slash podcasts in the sporting industry. McAfee had one of the best promos I've seen in quite a while. I feel like the way McAfee spoke on the mic at night, he could go toe to toe with the best of them in the ring. That promo was electrifying. He told him he may have forgotten who he was. Some people may have forgotten who he was. How he grew up with a father who lived paycheck to paycheck. Said he went from being a bum to being known all over the country. He goes on to say how he works his ass off, and more importantly, how he helps others, and even more importantly, how he's a loyal mother. Well, you know. And then he says, Cole been winning since day one. So he's gonna have Cole's back, just like Cole had his back since he showed up to WWE. And the crowd start with the Michael Cole chants, which I like because that man deserves his flowers. He said if he dies, he dies. And then he called out SmackDown's version of Adam Pearce, which of course was Nick Aldis for the night because Adam Pearce was at Raw. And he asked him to lift Gunther's suspension so he could fight Gunther as soon as possible. And Aldis said he figured it was coming, so he already spoke to Adam Pearce. And the answer is no. But if he really wants Gunther, he could get him at Backlash, one-on-one in the ring. And of course, Pat McAfee said deal. Now, if you think this is a joke, go look at Pat McAfee's NFL highlight. Pat McAfee is a dog. Yes, he was a punter. But Pat McAfee, if you was returning a punt and he got near you, he was putting you on your back. Pat McAfee was a hard hitter in the NFL as a punter. Pat McAfee also put on a great match in NXT against Adam Cole years ago. Pat McAfee is an athlete. And then we had a video package of Cena vs. Orton SummerSlam 2007. Of course, Cena won with an AA after kicking out from RKO. That's something you might want to look back on as we look forward to Backlash, Cena vs. Orton again. Then Sami Zayn was backstage again, and Jey Uso walked up. Jey Uso told him to make the decision that's best for him. He told him he loved him, and Sami essentially said that's what he needed to hear. So at this moment, I'm thinking, is Sami really not going to take this opportunity? You don't have to be a punk, scared, or running away to go to another show for a championship opportunity. You're probably not going to get on Raw at this time. And Sami pretty much just leaves the ring. I'm sorry, he walks off from backstage. And as Jay's getting ready to walk off, Logan Paul walks up and knocks him out right there. And you might call it a sneak attack, but Logan Paul is calling it payback because he was super kicked in the middle of the ring. All right, and then what led next? Well, I actually called it karma. Seth then came out and told Sami it's decision time. He let him know that if it could be anybody else to lead the company into the future, he would let it be them. But he only believes in himself leading business into the future. He says that the business ruins friendships. They've both been through it. They've both been on both sides of that coin. And then he tells Sami to take the deal or bad things gonna happen. Sami says they're good friends outside the ring. Like their kids play with each other. Seth also said that when his daughter was born, he asked Sami for parental advice. And Sami says But what Seth is doing in the ring is playing mind games. And he's trying to use the championship to get him to do what he wants. But he tells Seth he never been one to run away. He essentially said that he's not going nowhere. And he's going to be a world champion, not because of Seth, and not for anyone doing him a favor, but because he's going to earn his championship. And then Sami would essentially not essentially, he did tell Seth that he could go to hell. And immediately the sirens go off and Bron Breakker comes down to the ring, accompanied by the wise man, Paul Heyman. And this match, just like their previous matches, it's a pretty damn good match. Sami Zayn got a nice amount of offense in. He hit a sunset flip powerbomb off the top rope. Then he hit a tornado DDT. But, Bron Breakker is freakish athleticism. Gets a Frankensteiner. Goes for a spear. Sami Zayn caught him with an exploder. And then Sami Zayn setting up the haluva kick. That's pretty much where it went downhill for Sami Zayn. Because Sami Zayn went for that haluva kick and was broken in half by a spear. Now, that was just the first spear. Then Breakker spears him again. Seth says take the deal as Sami is struggling to get up. And he tells Seth to go to hell. Then there's another spear. And he rolls out the ring. Refs call for help. The WWE officials come down. Then Seth essentially throat slit, lets him know, finish the deal. Bron Breakker does his 23-mile-per-hour run around the ring and breaks Sami Zayn in half. Then he put Sami in the ring. Ref calls for the bell. Official try to help Sami, covering up, trying to help him up. And Seth tells Bron essentially that there's some people that they can show mercy. Some people they won't. Sami made his bed, so now Sami got to lay in it. And he hits him with a curb stomp to end the show as Seth Rollins, Paul Heyman, and Bron Breakker are standing tall over Sami Zayn. Now, what we see coming forward from this Raw, we see Vakir really taking over the main roster. Of course, it'd be hard to take over because there are a lot of big-time women already on the main roster. But Stephanie Vakir is special. Stephanie Vakir is proven. She's been all around the world wrestling. She's been with the rival company. She's down in NXT. She's the NXT champion. She was once the NXT champion and the NXT Women's North American champion at the same time after beating Guilia. I see a possibility of Roxanne and Guilia versus Io Sky and Rhea Ripley, which would be one hell of a match. Feel like the New Day and War Raiders are going to clash once again. Dom, AJ, I can see that coming down the pike, maybe even at Backlash. Don't get me wrong now. I feel like Gunther's going to destroy Pat McAfee, but Pat McAfee is going to be very impressive. Pat McAfee is going to give us a night to remember, but Gunther is pissed off. So at some point, the way McAfee said, if he dies, he dies. He's going to be close to it. And this Seth Breakker and Heyman thing, it's going to be out of this world. Those two are really going to put on him. And eventually, Seth's going to be champion. Eventually, Bron's going to turn on Seth. It's a lot to come down. In WWE now, since Triple H is taking over, things take time. Stories build. Stories last. They get you invested. So this is going to be down the line. But definitely see that happening. It's going to be interesting to see next Monday's Raw with Rusev coming. I don't know if any other matches other than Rusev and Otis have been announced. But it's going to be very interesting next week. This week was amazing. I say match of the night overall. I'm giving it to Stephanie versus Ivy Now. Only because the main event ended it the way it ended. But that was amazing. It just wasn't an end to a match. Not by a pinfall, submission, whatever. It wasn't a clear winner, I guess. But they destroyed Sami, which all of those. Sami's a fan favorite. You gotta like what you're seeing from this trio. It's gonna be great what they're doing. Paul Heyman is Paul Heyman. Like, it's gonna be great. I'll be back Friday night or Saturday morning for my SmackDown recap. I might even squeeze in an NXT recap, but we'll see you soon. It's Everything Wrestling with Mr. Everything, and I'm Mr. Everything. I'm out.